Buddy, how are you feeling today? You sound wonderful. I believe you. I don't think you're lying to me. Are you getting rest here at camp meeting, or are you getting less rest? Getting more rest? You're away from maybe some stresses you normally have to deal with. How many people here got at least 6 hours of sleep last night? How many got 7? Anyone here get 8? A few hands. Good. We're going to be talking about rest this morning. In particular, 3 areas of rest: our physical, mental, and spiritual rest. Also talking about environment, because they go hand in hand. Rest is a very interesting thing, as we're going to find out. There are things that happen when we sleep that are amazing, and there are things that happen when we don't get our sleep that are creating a lot of problems for people. In fact, I didn't mention it yesterday. Remember those maps we saw yesterday? This epidemic going across the nation? One of the reasons why this is also true, we talked about cheap food yesterday. We talked about inferior ingredients manufacturers are using, and some of those ingredients are, from the research I've seen, I'm not a clinical person, I'm not a scientist, but from the research I've seen, some of those ingredients will toy with your hormones. But another reason why we have this epidemic is chronic sleep loss in this country. Do you notice a change in your lifestyle and how you live your day now versus, say, if you were around in 1980, and I think most everybody here was in 1980? Is there a change in the last 30 years? Does it seem faster now than it was before? I know each generation probably says, well, it's faster now than what it was before. I'm sure my dad's parents back in the 40s were saying it's faster now than it was back in the 20s. But it seems like it is truly a 24/7 society, and I'm not sure we've ever had that before in this country. And people, because they have so much stress, so much anxiety, what they are doing oftentimes is, in my opinion, from what I see happening, and you may have your own, I'm sure you do, is they're trying to distract themselves from that anxiety and from that stress. We talked about coping mechanisms yesterday. One of the other things they're trying to do is distract themselves so they can get some relief from it, so they don't have to deal with it. And one of the ways that they're distracting themselves is by constantly being plugged in, connected to the internet, to their cell phones, to their smartphones, to whatever it might be. That way, if they're engaged doing something, if they're at least active with something, they don't have to deal with the other issues in their lives. So I think that a lot of people are just exhausted because they, well, let me ask you this. I don't really want to get personal, but maybe I'll get personal here a little bit. There are times, this is kind of a safe personal thing, there are times when perhaps I'm dealing with an issue or a challenge in my life that, you know what, I dread the thought of going to bed to have to be alone with my thoughts, you know, in those 20 or 30 minutes of darkness before I finally fall asleep, because I know I will likely have to think about that stuff or deal with that stuff. Do you know what I'm talking about at all? You know, you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to actually give thought to those issues that really require thought sooner than later many times. And so it doesn't sound like it sounds like you and I have something in common, and I think probably there are people out there in the world who probably experience that even more than we do when you look at the life that they're living and things that they're going through. So people are shorting themselves when it comes to rest. So let's just get into it today. Today we're talking about rest and the calm that refreshes you. Des he has a word, Des Cummings at Florida Hospital. He talks about rest-oration. And there can't be restoration if there isn't rest involved in that. So what I'm really hoping for today, I'm going to try to slow down a little bit. What I'm really hoping for today is that we gain an appreciation for rest, and that we begin giving ourselves the gift of rest, because God gave us rest for one reason, I think. Well, there are 2 reasons. One, you know, have you thought about it? God created us. Could he have created human beings that didn't require rest? I mean, he could have, couldn't he have? I mean, he could have created a type of biological mechanism that could be awake all day long, day and night, every day. So when I get to heaven, I want to ask him why he built us in such a way that we actually require physical rest to rebuild, to recharge, to repair, you know, because he didn't have to do that. So we require rest in order to be healthy, but really another reason that I think it's interesting God gave us rest, that God gave himself rest. Didn't God give himself rest? I mean, he rested on the seventh day. He didn't need it, per se, from a physical point of view. I don't even think he needed it from a mental point of view. I mean, why would God ever require mental rest? I don't think he ever would. But why did he rest? He gave himself the gift of rest so he could enjoy the family he just created. So when you look at the role of rest in your life, I mean, you can be very utilitarian and say, I need to get my rest in order to be healthy, or you can say, you know what? God gave us rest to enjoy life, to enjoy the people we love, the people that matter most. And if you're not giving yourself the gift of rest from week to week, then you're missing out on what God feels is the most important thing in life. Each other. And enjoying a beautiful world that he created for us to thrive in. So today, I'm hoping we'll all gain a better appreciation, deeper appreciation of building rest into our lives so we can begin enjoying life instead of being actively engaged in doing life all the time. Maybe it's kind of a sensitive spot for me this morning because I'm under deadline with multiple projects. And I feel like I'm doing life right now and I need a little bit of rest myself. I went back and wrote all yesterday afternoon. I'm going back. I have more writing and projects I have to do this afternoon. I'm thinking, man, I can't wait for Sabbath to come because I don't have any obligations this Sabbath, and I just want to rest and enjoy. So let's talk about sleep. Let's get into the physical side of rest. Up to 40% of people in this country get less than 6 hours of sleep a night, and that's very dangerous because of certain things it does. We're going to talk about those in a second, but let's talk about how much rest is actually necessary. Traditionally, we have said that we need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That is still the case. I know that there are reports coming out, even this last month, saying you only need 6 hours. Don't believe that's true. At least we have research that says that you need more than 6 hours. You might need a minimum of 6 hours to keep yourself from falling apart, but you're not getting the wellness benefits that sleep offers if you're missing out on getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I have all sorts of statistics, but I won't go into them. I want to share with you what the sleep researchers say is what we need for sleep each night. Now, if some of you are grandparents, you might want to write some of this stuff down. I don't know. You can't be preachy to your kids and grandkids, I know. But one thing I'm seeing is, since I now have a 5-year-old and I've been aware of other kids and families and I've been seeing their children, it seems like parents are really skipping out on sleep the kids need to develop. I mean, it affects brain growth and weight. In fact, a kid who's just a few months old who does not get the sleep he or she requires is at like 2 to 3 times greater chance of being obese at the ages of 7 and 8 by missing out on their sleep when they're infants. So I don't know where you are on this chart. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but if you have a kid who's 13 to 18 or 19, I mean, they need a lot of sleep. I can't believe, this really baffles me. You take an infant. Infants need 14 to 15 hours of sleep. You've all been parents. You know what this is like. If they're actually sleeping 14 to 15 hours a day, can you tell me why we feel tired all the time? What is with that? They sleep all day, and we were exhausted the first 2 or 3 years of Garrison's life. And, it's gotten a little, huh? They do interrupt, yes. The 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock feedings. My goodness. But they need that amount of sleep. Jennifer, she's militant, let me tell you, and that's the word I'm going to use when it came to Garrison's sleep. And he got his sleep, and it has really paid off as far as I can tell. Now that he's going into this preschool years, he's averaging 12 hours of sleep a night, and he'll keep that up in the coming years. And we'll help him do that because he needs it for his growth. And I need it for my sanity. So here's one of the reasons why sleep is so important. And I'm having a hard time reading some of that, so I'm going to have to put these on. And these don't work well either, but it helps. If you miss sleep from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., your immune system drops by 30% in its effectiveness. Most of us are asleep from 3 to 7 unless you are a nurse or in that type of profession. Now here's the scary one. In another study, they found that if you missed 2 hours of sleep between the hours of 10 and 3 a.m., your immune system dropped by 50% in its effectiveness. Now, how long do you think that drop lasted? A few days or It'll last a month. A person who misses 2 hours of sleep from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. decreases the effectiveness of their immune system by 50%, and they'll live with that for the next 30 days. Now, do you know anybody in your life who is missing 2 hours of sleep between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m.? And are they doing it just once every so often, or is it kind of happening every night or multiple times a week? So can you imagine then the quality of their immune system if they are consistently missing these hours of sleep? Is there a reason why people seem so easy to get sick, get ill? If you want to have a strong, healthy immune system, you've got to get your sleep, and you need to be asleep before midnight. Earlier in the evening is better, as we've long said, right? The hours before midnight, and now we have science verifying what we've been teaching for over 100 years. Missing one good night of sleep can affect you for up to 4 weeks. Now, when you miss your sleep, this is what happens. Your hormonal system falls into complete disarray. I want to read part of this research. You know, if you do Creation Health in your church, by the way, and you're actually teaching it, you see these sheets of paper? These come with the Creation Health Seminar Kit, and on the bottom, there are these speaker's notes. So what I'm telling you, you could tell others when you teach Creation Health Seminar. Anybody can do this. You don't have to be a clinical expert. So I'm going to cite the research that comes with this kit. It says, an inadequate amount of sleep can trigger the release of, well, first of all, I want to get to that. It's very important. Two things. Researchers at the University of Chicago have shown that when people sleep just 4 hours a night, various hormonal and metabolic systems fall into disarray. It says chronic sleep loss can hasten and increase the onset and severity of diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, all those things listed there. Question might be asked, well, why? Why does chronic sleep loss, what is it about your hormonal situation being thrown into disarray? What's happening there that's causing these things to happen that you see on the screen? Well, what's happening is this. According to researchers, they say an inadequate amount of sleep can trigger the release of more adrenaline, cortisol, and other stress hormones during the day. So you're missing your sleep at night, your body's going to release these stress hormones in your body throughout the daytime when you're awake. These hormones contribute to blood pressure not dipping during sleep. Normally your blood pressure goes down when you sleep, but when these hormones are cascading through your body through the day, you go to sleep the following night, your blood pressure's not going down, it's staying elevated. It says thereby this increases the risk of heart disease. It says inadequate sleep affects the heart and vascular system by increasing production of certain proteins that play a role in heart disease. For example, studies find that people who chronically do not get enough sleep have higher blood levels of C-reactive protein. Higher levels of this protein may suggest a greater risk of developing hardening of the arteries. It says the Nurses' Health Study found that women who reported sleeping fewer than 5 hours nightly had a 39% increased risk of coronary heart disease, and 6 hours per night was associated with an increased risk of 18%. A lot of people are getting 6 hours, but if you're only getting 6 hours of sleep per night, you're increasing your risk by 18% of coronary artery. This is in the book. Yeah, but you could, so this is in the Creation Health Seminar. Yeah. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, I get this all the time, and this is one of those topics, as far as I can tell, that there's a healthy debate on, but one thing is for sure, the debate is if a night person is getting sleep, 8 hours of sleep during the day, are they protecting themselves? And the answer I see coming back most of the time is no, they're not. Because there is something that happens during nighttime sleep that doesn't happen during daytime sleep, at least from the sleep researchers we're using. Unfortunately, the night workers, and we have to have night workers in this, I mean, people need care, especially in the hospitals, but they have found time and time and time again, you're increasing your risk for cancer by working the graveyard shift. And that, you know, so that's a debate that's going to continue for a while. I don't know if this helps or not. What I have to trust is this. If God is calling you into a profession where you're caring for people, and it's a noble profession, and you have to do it, I know that there are other things in this Creation Health Seminar that we teach will compensate for the weaker areas that we're in. For instance, when it comes to living longer and being healthy when you're in your 50s or 60s, the question is, will a healthy marriage have a greater impact on your life of being healthier physiologically, or will low cholesterol have a greater impact? Well, the scientific mind will say low cholesterol, but we found in our research that it's actually a happy marriage. So if there's something with your cholesterol levels or your diet that might not be as healthy as it could be, well, a happy, healthy marriage will compensate for that. So my theory, and it's just a theory, is that if you're not getting your sleep at night because you're having to work to care for people, you know, if you're living a life of meaning and purpose and you have a connection with God, I think and you have a faith community you're connected with that supports you, I think there are going to be some other social and spiritual factors there that will compensate perhaps for some of the things you're lacking when it comes to sleep. But that's just my theory. Okay? But officially, people who work the night shift are at risk for more cancer, which is sad. Okay, so we talked about that. Well, one reason sleep is having a part to play in the obesity epidemic is lack of sleep does something else besides just what we talked about. When you don't get your sleep, two hormones go into great imbalance. One is ghrelin and the other one is leptin. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes you feel full. Ghrelin is the hormone, let me change it. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes you feel hungry. Leptin is the hormone that makes you feel full. So here's what happens. When you don't get your sleep, ghrelin skyrockets, leptin plummets. So if you don't get your sleep and your ghrelin, the hormone responsible for making you hungry, skyrockets, then you're going to feel what? You're going to feel hungry. And if the hormone for making you feel full plummets, you'll be hungry all the time. So what happens is, I don't know if you've had this happen to you, but you miss sleep and you get the munchies and you eat. Have you ever had a day where you eat and eat and eat and nothing seems to fill that hole in your stomach? Think back, there's a likely chance that you missed out on some sleep the night before, maybe a lot of sleep. We had an executive, and I don't know if she's still in Colorado. We were out there teaching Creation Health, particularly rest. And she came up, I wasn't there, Ted Hamilton was there teaching rest, and she came up, introduced herself, and she was morbidly obese, which means she was 100 pounds overweight. And she told him how touched she was by the presentation on rest. He was back there a year later, and she came up to him and said, "You don't recognize me, do you?" And of course, you travel all the time, you see all these people, and he probably wouldn't have anyway. But what happened was, in the 12 months since he had been there, she lost all 100 pounds of weight, and she told him the only thing she had done was she started requiring herself to get 8 hours of sleep a night. That's it. 8 hours of sleep a night, where before, as a CEO, and she still was a CEO, she was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. So getting 3 more hours of sleep a night helped her to lose 100 pounds because guess what? She wasn't what all the time? Hungry. She wasn't hungry all the time. You wouldn't think that sleep would have that significant of an impact, but it does. Now, lest you think that more can be good and more is good, you can get too much sleep. I was shocked to find this out. If you sleep less than 6 hours a night or more than 9 hours a night, you shorten your lifespan on average by 9 years. Because too much sleep throws your hormones into metabolic disarray as well. Do you know anybody in your life who might be going through a situation who is still asleep maybe at noon or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe because they stayed up to 3 or 4 in the morning trying to cope with their pain, I don't know. But too much sleep, when you're an adult now, is not good. When you're a kid, you're an infant, you need 15 hours of sleep. You get 15 hours of sleep when you're an adult, well, you'll be unemployed and homeless and everything else, I imagine. So you don't want too much sleep. I was talking to a group of pastors not long ago and talked to them about this. And one of them, they were actually at our campus in Florida Hospital, and we're giving them a tour. And he made a point to walk with me to the next place we were going, and I could tell something was on his heart. And so we're walking alone together. And he said, I really was listening to that presentation on rest. And he said, he was an administrator in a conference. He was pastoring a church as well in a conference. And he had a young family. Kids were less than 10 years old, a couple of kids. And he said, my typical day is, he said, I'm in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said, I'm up at 6, helping the kids get ready for school, because I drive them to school, which is right across from the conference office. And he said, you know something? He just looked down and he said, I don't want to miss out on 9 years of life with my children. And he said, I'm going to start making some changes. You know, so is getting more sleep something that most people can do? It is. It's a simple thing that can make a big difference. So if you, in your influence with people, if you can do it in a very nice, appealing way, you know, a winsome way, you can encourage people to get their rest. They need their physical rest. They're not getting their physical rest. They're going to have cloudy minds and sick bodies. The other thing that happens when you go to sleep physically is the release of growth hormone. Have you ever heard of getting your beauty sleep? This is it. Growth hormone is responsible, just put it in layman's terms so you know I can understand it, is the beauty hormone. It's the one that keeps you young and youthful. And the thing is, although it's released at certain times during the day and throughout the night, the most predictable, greatest pulse of growth hormone that's released into your body is in the earliest non-REM stages of sleep, which takes place in the earliest hours when you go to bed. So if you're missing those early hours, say you go to bed at midnight and you're getting up at 5:30 or 6, you're not going to go into those deep, deep stages, the non-REM deep stages, because you've already shortened your sleep cycle that you need to begin with. So you're cutting yourself short of the growth hormone that you should have been getting into your system at 9 or 10. And so what happens, if you've seen someone who looks really, really old, but they're not as old as they are, that could be for many reasons, but it could also be very likely that they're not getting their sleep. It could be for many reasons. But if you don't, put it this way. If you want to look older than you are and look worn out and haggard, just skip on your sleep. You want to look young and vibrant and youthful? Get your sleep early, in the early hours before midnight, so growth hormone can do its thing and repair your body and keep you having a youthful, you know, expression, a youthful way about yourself. Growth hormone. They're just finding out more and more and more about growth hormone. All right, let's talk about getting a good day's sleep, because it starts in the daytime. How well you sleep tonight is determined by what you do right now through the rest of this day. You need to have plenty of sunshine, plenty of sunlight. Sunlight does a couple of things. We're going to talk about it more in environment. But here, have you heard of melatonin? Do you know that your body only makes a certain amount of melatonin daily? It starts being released. Do you know when does anyone here know when melatonin, what triggers melatonin being released? Nighttime or a dark room. This room is not bright enough, in my opinion. I mean, we need it to see the screens, right? But melatonin, the release of melatonin is triggered by darkness. So if you're in your house and your drapes are closed, or you're in a dark room, an office building with little light, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get sleepy because melatonin is now it's seeping into your system. What sunshine does is, bright light or sunshine will block the release of melatonin. It will keep it from getting into your system during the day. So what is the benefit of that at night when you go to sleep? If melatonin has been blocked mostly throughout the day, and you have that reserve at night, what's going to happen to you at night? You're going to feel what? You're going to feel sleepy. If you've gone through if you exhausted your supply of melatonin through the day and you lay down on the bed at night and put your head on the pillow, you're likely not going to feel. And you're going to stay awake and fight trying to go to sleep. Sunshine if you want to have a good night's sleep, while you're here and every day, you need to get out into the sunshine. Or get a light in your house that kind of mimics, keep things bright, keep the drapes open, so that your melatonin is not exhausted throughout the day. And so you don't feel sleepy throughout the day. Isn't it hard to do work, projects, writing, even to do physical labor when you're feeling sleepy? I mean, it's horrible, isn't it? When you're trying to, and you have, well, you can have something to do with that by moderating the sunlight, managing the sunlight during the day. Fresh air. Fresh air is different. We're going to talk about this in environment, so I'm not going to go into this deeply, but it's chemically different than recirculated air. Fresh air is negatively charged, which is a good thing. So what this does is, if you go outside in the fresh wind, or if you're near an ocean or a waterfall, water gives off negative ions. You know, a waterfall or ocean waves throw off negative ions. Negative ions have a tranquilizing effect on your system. So if you want to have a good night's sleep, maybe a good thing would be to get some fresh air in the evening hours or something. to have that tranquilizing effect streaming through your body. Physical activity, they've done studies. This makes perfect sense. We don't have to go into it. People who are physically active sleep better. They've done studies with people in their 60s and 70s, and they found it time and time again. Those who are physically active have better sleep and uninterrupted sleep. Isn't that important? Not having to get up and go to the bathroom 3 times a night, or which can be a prostate-related issue, I suppose, or, just waking up. I woke up for some reason at least 3 times last night. I don't know why. Eat a light supper earlier. We all know this. We've been saying it for years. If you eat a lot of food late, you're going to be paying for it throughout the night. Our digestive system needs a break. It needs a rest. So funny. I see these commercials now, when I'm watching TV for these heartburn pills. It seems like people are now creating a lifestyle for themselves where they're going to be taking heartburn pills, I guess you'd say prophylactically, where you're expecting to do something or eat something that's going to trigger the heartburn, so you take a pill in advance to make sure you don't get those effects. 24 hours, it seems kind of silly to me, Eat a light supper and eat foods that you should be eating so you don't need those pills to begin with. Okay, maintain a dark room. Common sense. Maintain a quiet room. Common sense. Maintain a cool temperature. I don't know how many marriages have split up over this right here. Maybe a few haven't split up, but I know quite a few that have actually endured a lot of stress with a cool temperature. Mine being one of those marriages. Jennifer likes to have a warm room. I cannot stand to have a warm room when I go to sleep. I mean, face it. There are only so many clothes you can take off to get cool, right? If you're cold, you can put clothes on. If you're still cold, you can put more clothes on. If you're cold, you can put more clothes on. Working the other way around, you only take off so many clothes, and there's nothing worse than trying to go to sleep at night, and then you get up to go get a drink in the bathroom or something, and there's like a sweat print on the sheet. It's like a chalk outline on the ground, I can't stand a warm room, so, she tries to, she's nice, and I turn it down to the temperature that I need it to be at night, and additionally I have one of these tower fans right beside my bed blowing air on me all night long. So I'm kind of not normal when it comes to the temperature I need. But what do you think is the optimum temperature for sleeping? I've heard 65, 68, 70. It's actually 68. 68 degrees. That is the best temperature for getting your best sleep. Now that's cold. That's cold. But you'll sleep better. And if you need to put an extra couple of blankets on it, on your bed, do it. I have started... I think I'm making progress in this battle at home. When I was home last week, I had the temperature down to 69 at night. So I have 1 more degree to go before I'm where we need to be. All right? Started at 74, went down to 73. It's probably been 4 or 5 years now. I'm almost down to 68. All right. I'm sure Jennifer has her own version. Yes, sir. Yes, but in the wintertime, likely your house is going to be cool anyway. But yes, even year-round, 68. Helps the circulation, some of those things. Yes, as long as it's not waking you up. Mental rest. Let's just blow through this. This is pretty easy. We need mental rest, just like we need physical rest. Here are some easy things you can do to get mental rest. If you were taking the 90-minute Creation Health presentation, we go much deeper into all of this. But you can take a nap. Who has time for naps? I don't have a time for nap, but if you have a time for nap, good. Take a nap. It should be earlier in the day, though. Don't take a nap within 5 hours of going to sleep, or else you have trouble sleeping. Frequent mental breaks, we can do that. A frequent mental break would be praying, could be visiting with somebody. It could be walking out in the sunshine for 5 minutes and just breathing, thinking about a Bible promise, or, giving praise to God for what He's done, who He is. A break could be a massage. This is not a luxury, folks. If you can scrounge the money together and even do it once a quarter, a massage will give you mental rest and physiological benefits. Laughing. We're going to cover something very important regarding laughing, or at least a study that I think you'll find interesting on Friday morning, so I won't go into that now. But laugh. Slow, deep breaths. How are you breathing right now? Are you conscious of it? It's probably kind of shallow. It's probably shallow throughout the day. Be more aware of how you breathe. And take some slow, deep breaths, 4, 5, 6, 7 good deep breaths. Fill up your whole diaphragm, breathe through the diaphragm. You'll find, and if you can, you know what? You can actually cross-train this Do your deep breathing out in the sunshine with the fresh air. So you're kind of getting a trifecta effect there. Sunshine, fresh air, and deep breathings. Very simple things to do. 4 or 5 minutes makes a difference. Get your annual vacation. 12,000 men they studied showed that an annual vacation, this is just amazing, is associated with a reduced risk of all-cause mortality. So if you're not getting your annual vacation, you're putting yourself at risk of dying prematurely. In this hostile work environment these last 3 years, there are people who felt they couldn't take their vacation because if they did, somebody else would move in and take their job. You do what you have to do. I understand. We all do this. But when you can, take your annual vacation. You deserve it. You need it. In fact, they've done other studies. People who don't take their annual vacations have greater struggles with psychosomatic illnesses. So, if you want to die too young, and if you want to be crazy a lot of the time, skip your vacation. If you want to be sane and live long, take your vacation. Spiritual rest. We go more into this in our seminar. We're going to talk about trust on Thursday, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply here. But you need spiritual rest. In fact, what they've found, chronobiologists have found that our bodies work on a 7-day rhythm, which kind of supports the idea of our seventh-day Sabbath. In fact, if you go in and get a transplant, say a kidney transplant, your body's likely to reject it on the 7th day and the 14th day after surgery than any other day. Swelling after surgery is likeliest the worst on the 7th and 14th days. They actually seen this 7-day cycle in other parts of our life. Yes? I'm glad you asked. You know what? The last research I read on that was 14 days. They say the wellness benefits of a vacation do not kick in fully unless you're away 14 days. Now, there are many of us who don't have a chance to take 14-day vacations. Or maybe you don't want to take your 14-day vacation all at once. So you can get considerable wellness benefit from taking like a long weekend, 4 days. But if you can take a 14-day vacation, that's when you get the maximum benefits from the mental rest and physical rest. Glad you asked. All right, take adequate breaks, 1 day a week, 24-hour Sabbath. We'll talk about, we plant the seed for a Sabbath in the seminar. We go into the 7-day cycle that we live in our seminar. I'm assuming, are all pretty much of the same, one accord when it comes to this topic, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it here because I want to get into environment in the last few minutes we have. Spiritual rest. Bible says, come to me all you who are weary and burdened. Come to me all you who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. That's spiritual rest. Spiritual rest, what's spiritual rest? It can be many things. I think spiritual rest that we teach here is to experience spiritual rest means to be at peace with God. And that's a great place to be. Benefits of adequate rest: improves concentration, energy, decreases anxiety and irritability. Maybe somebody we know needs to have more rest if we see that popping up. Decreases feelings of depression and hopelessness, gives you a more youthful appearance. There's some more. Improves judgment, decreases blood pressure, decreases stress hormones, increases feelings of happiness. You take a person who's only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, they might be unhappy, which could lead them to do irreversible things in their life. So maybe just helping your friend get more rest could really start turning things around for him or her. It could be that simple. So are you getting enough sleep time? Think about yourself. You getting enough sleep time, personal time, family time, time with God, vacation time? I mean, if you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on each of these areas, what would it look like to you? Sleep. Personal time. Vacation time, I bet everybody would probably be like a 3 on a scale from 1 to 10, or maybe a 4 or 5. Time with God, that's the most important time of all. Jesus Christ was up before sunrise every day, deep in meditation and prayer to God. And he was busy all day long. And I know that spiritual connection had a compensating effect for him and his wellness because he spent that time connected with God. There's something that happens there. Christ had a physical body like you and me. He wasn't using divinity to maintain his health. He was obeying the laws of health as well in his time here on earth. He was getting his rest. And the one time that he did not sacrifice was his time with God. That made all the difference to him. So choose to make rest a priority in your life so that you can begin enjoying life, which is what rest is for anyway. Okay, we're going to take the last 15 minutes to go over environment. Before we do, I need to make sure you have the answers in your outline for those who want them. In your outline, rest. I didn't cover some of these things, so I need to give you, so you won't know the answers. Sleep promotes ideal weight, protects against high blood pressure, and it strengthens memory. We didn't talk about that. Strengthens memory. If you're having memory problems, it could be other things, but probably a rest issue, a sleep issue. So if you want to have a poor memory, skip on your sleep. 30% of Americans sleep less than 6 hours each night. That's 30 to 40%. 30 to 40%. How many hours of sleep do we lose on any given night to cut the effectiveness of our immune system? 2. And it cuts it in what? Half. Good. We didn't cover this next one. Foods high in melatonin include bananas, tomatoes, and cucumbers. So if you're having a hard time feeling sleepy at night, maybe you want to grab a tomato or a cucumber. If you're diabetic, you need to be very careful of bananas. They're a tropical fruit that's loaded with, sugar. So if you're diabetic, I would shy away from bananas. But maybe a tomato or a cucumber would be fine. Spiritual rest means to be at peace with God. Peace with God. And then there's a summary of what we talked about below. A typical Creation Health presentation is 60 to 90 minutes for one principle. So we are going through this at a quicker pace than normal. But I wanted to kind of do it this way because most places I'm asked to come and speak, I don't have 90 minutes. So I'm trying to come up with a way to teach Creation Health where we can do 2 in a presentation. And by giving you enough information that it's beneficial, but not going so deep. Okay, are we good to move on as we round out the last few minutes? Environment. When we talk about environment, we're not talking about environmentalism. We do suggest recycle, reuse, all that stuff because that's being good stewards of the earth. But when we talk about environment, we're talking about the spaces that you find yourself in all the time. And when you think of where you are all the time, what are the 3 spaces you actually exist in most of the time when you think about your day? Where are you? Where do you spend the majority of your time each day? There are 3 spaces. Home, work, car. So you need to think about your home, your work, your car. Do these environments reflect the environment that Jesus Christ has created for us that supports our wellness and happiness? Are they, and you'll see more what that means as we go through this. But is your car cluttered? Is your office cluttered? Is your home cluttered? I've been in parking lots and I've looked over just walking past the car that I parked next to, and there are, like Burger King things on the dashboard. I saw one car that was just filled full of paper. This is an exception. Filled full of papers in the back seat, like invoices and stuff. And I was like, man, I almost had to go take a vacation just after looking at the car. And I don't keep my car as tidy as it should be, but is your car producing wellness effects, I guess you'd say? Your environment is what you hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. It affects you. What you're experiencing out there is having an effect inside. Profound one too. They've actually found that stressful living spaces elevates blood pressure, gives people headaches. It increases, gastrointestinal problems. People with cluttered, messy spaces are more likely to be depressed than those who have orderly, organized spaces. And it increases a person's anxiety. So you see, people are experiencing these things. Some of those things will trigger people into a coping mechanism to deal with that stress that will lead to a habit that creates disease that leads to their premature death. So a simple thing could be, if you have a friend and you know that maybe there could be some improvement here, if you could help them improve their living space, you will help diminish these negative side effects. So you could get rid of a lot of the premature death and disease things with just by helping a person live in a clutter-free, orderly environment. I mean, it's simple. In fact, this next slide, organization and cleanliness research is showing increases peace, health, decreased waste, increased energy. Listen to this. There's a researcher from, where's this guy from? I don't see where he's from. His name's Campbell. They did a research study on a professor's office, and they made his office really messy, and then they cleaned it up and put some plants and made it really clean. And they wanted to see if his office would have any effect on how the students felt walking into his office. And this is what they found. They said, the condition of a professor's office determined how welcome and comfortable the students visiting his office felt. According to the results of this study, plants and tidiness made visitors feel the most comfortable. All right, so how do people feel when they walk into our churches? Are our churches tidy and clean and look nice? People are going to feel warm and comfortable in your church if your church isn't a mess. And if there might be some green plants around from place to place. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. You need to put some thought into it, though. Not rocket science. Nature's effect on the mind. just by simply passively looking at nature, something you enjoy, whether it's a mountain or an ocean or a flower garden or a mountain bike trail, I don't know what it might be. Simply by looking at it. It can be passive or you can engage, but passively looking at that increases psychological well-being, it decreases blood pressure, and decreases frustration. In fact, they took a video and they showed two groups of people. One group watched the video of driving through hectic traffic, and they measured the blood pressure and their heart rate, and it all went up after watching a video of rush hour traffic, people zipping along through, the roads trying to get to work. Then they took them and showed them a drive down a scenic highway with trees and mountains and all sorts of greenery, and they actually noticed it lowered their blood pressure and pulse. So maybe if you're in a pressure cooker environment that you're going crazy in your brain and you just want to get away from it all, maybe in your environment, say at work, perhaps some sort of photo, image, picture of whatever you appreciate most in nature should be in your office space, your workspace, because simply looking at it will make you feel better and will calm you down. Maybe in your car there needs to be some soothing sounds or soothing scents because they have an equal effect on you. Little things you can do to make your life healthier and stronger and better. According to the EPA, I said this yesterday, we spend 90% of our time inside. The air inside our homes and offices is 200 to 500% more polluted than the air outside. And it's because construction is so good these days, the air transfer does not allow for exchange to come in. You're stuck with the air that you have inside, and you're breathing it all the time. What you can do is, so this is one of the top 5 environmental risks according to the EPA, but you know what you can do? People are starting to teach this. We were teaching it a long time ago. NASA did research. You can purify your office space, you can purify your home by putting 1 6-inch living plant per 100 square feet. So if you have a 1,000 square foot home, you just need 10 little plants, and they will detoxify and purify the air inside your house. 1 6-inch plant per 100 square feet. What plants are best? These. I don't even know 3/4 of them on the list. I'm afraid of the mother-in-law tongue plant. I don't know what that might look like. Is it pretty? I don't know. I have a good mother-in-law. No complaints. If you don't get these now, I have the list. You can come up afterwards and write it down. People always ask. You know what? The only one I really recognize on there is like the daisy, the palm, and the peace lily. But those are the best top picks for purifying your office space and your house. If you know somebody who is living in an environment that you have a good sense is toxic because there's no fresh air coming in because the air exchange is really, really poor, do you think you might be able to take an hour, go to Home Depot or Lowe's, spend $10 and getting a 6-inch plant and going and taking it to them and at least getting them started in the right direction? You can do that. In fact, if your church has a shut-in ministry, maybe you're bored, or you don't even need board's approval unless you're going to ask them to pay for something. I wouldn't even go through it. I would just get my Sabbath school together or something, and I'd buy a few plants and go visit the shut-ins and bring them a plant or something. Help purify their house. Sunshine. Okay, we've talked about sunshine for years and years and years. There's some powerful things that happen with sunshine. Sunshine not only blocks melatonin, but it increases serotonin. Do you know what serotonin is called? It's called the what hormone? The happy hormone. You want to be happier? Go get out in the sunlight, and your body will naturally release serotonin. It'll perk you up. It'll make you happier, make you feel like put joy in your heart. Sunshine also does something else. It kills germs. What they found is if you just pull back your drapes, let the sunshine in through your window, it will kill the bacteria and other germs where the light is shining. And now, the pillar of light doesn't have to be shining on that spot to kill the germs. There's something about the rays, the ultraviolet rays, that as long as sunshine is coming into that room, it will start cleansing that room. So open the curtains, open the drapes, let the sun shine in. Let it purify your living space, your workspace if you can. Maybe a lot of people don't have windows, they have a cubicle, and so put a plant on your desk in your cubicle, that'll help. Sunshine increases nutrients. They found that oranges that are harvested in sunshine have more vitamin C than oranges that are not harvested when the sun's shining on them. Don't know why, but the other thing is sunshine is the greatest source of vitamin D. So oftentimes people will drink milk and things like that, which is fine, But if you really want to boost your vitamin D, get some sunshine, it'll increase it. And you know what sunshine does? Sunshine actually converts your cholesterol into vitamin D. So go out in the sunshine, let it do its thing with your cholesterol and get a happy, a healthy outcome from that. And it also, sunshine does. They found research that sunshine is at 15 minutes a day to 30 minutes depending on your skin type. If you go out, it actually will prevent skin cancer. So someone like me, who's fair-skinned, I wouldn't want to be out more than 15 minutes. Someone like you maybe, or a darker skin complexion, should get 30 minutes of sunshine, and they're finding that it's saving thousands and thousands and thousands of people a year by preventing skin cancer. So what you need to do is, though, if you go out in the sunshine for that, don't put sunscreen on until you've gotten your prescription's worth of sunshine, your 15 minutes or 20 minutes, then put your sunscreen on. Arms and legs. I heard a researcher back in November, this is one of her areas of specialties, and she says the more body coverage the sun has access to, the better off you'll be. So if you live in a private place, maybe you can, go outside in a pair of shorts or something if you're a lady. But the rule is the more exposure you can give to the sun, the better off you'll be. But if you're fair-skinned, don't do more than 15 minutes or else you're going to burn. You're defeating your purpose. Okay, fresh air. This is the study I've been wanting to share all morning long. Fresh air, and I don't know what happened there. Here we go, fresh air. We talked about fresh air being charged. It's chemically different than recirculated air. It has negative ions, and that's a good thing. In fact, you don't want positive ions. Computers and electronic equipment throw off positive ions. It has a destructive effect on your wellness. So you need to have negative ions. I actually make negative ion things you can plug into a USB port now with your computers. I didn't think there was anything to this negative ion thing. How it boosts your immune system. We know it makes you feel tranquil. In fact, if you're traveling or if you want to, if you feel stressed, something you can do, I've read, this might sound silly, I'm a little bit reluctant to share it, but I think it works. You can go to the sink, turn the water on with a heavy flow, put your hands underneath it, and let the water bubble up out of your hands. They say that throws off negative ions. And you can come down and just take a few breaths, not of the water, but breathe the air kind of coming off the water. Shower, they say, does the same thing. I've read it when it comes to waterfalls and streams and oceans. And I know that that's been researched and documented, but I've heard people say that water thing as well. What they did was, with these negative ions, I didn't think there was anything to it, but they did. It was like, it made headlines throughout the whole medical community. They went over to Holland, I think it was, Switzerland. They went to a Swiss textile mill. They had two groups of workers. And what they did was they put a negative ion machine. You've seen those negative ion machines, about this tall? They put one in each of their workspaces. But what they didn't tell the workers was that in one of the workspaces, although the machine was on, the ionizing mechanism was disabled. So they thought they were getting negative ions, but they weren't. The other group was getting their negative ions, and they wanted to see what impact, if any, these groups would have, because they weren't sure there was anything to it. What they found was, at the end of the study, during a month-long flu epidemic, the negative ion group lost 3 working days. The other group lost 40. 40. It says the statistical conclusion was that since the only change in personnel and working environment was the generation of negative ions in one room, the ionizers alone were responsible for that wellness benefit. So if you want to increase your wellness, get an ionizer in your house, your office space, even in your car. They make them for your cigarette lighter now. There is something to it. They work. The negative ions have a tranquilizing effect, like we said. They'll improve your brain and lung function, improve learning. If you're having a hard time studying, your brain seems locked up and heated, overheating, get outside, get some fresh air, let it tranquilize your brain. It lowers your resting heart rate and all those things. Okay. We got to blow through this because touch, I'm just going to skim this. Touch has wellness benefits as well. Babies who aren't touched, get depressed and they stop eating and it can lead to death. In fact, babies who are touched 15 minutes a day, they're finding, we've done some, I don't know if we've done the studies or another hospital, there's research done where babies who are touched daily in the neonatal units, these are kids who are born prematurely, that their hospital stay is shortened by 6 days, and there's a savings of $3,000 just by the personnel going in and making sure the baby is touched. a few times a day for 10 or 15 minutes. We are made to be touched and to touch. Husbands who get hugs from their wife actually live longer and have fewer health problems. I don't know if the reverse is true. I'd assume it is. But say you don't have someone around that you can hug, or you get in trouble if you did hug the person that was around with you at the time, or your wife is gone 150 days a year, or I'm gone. One thing that helps is pets. You can receive similar, if not the same, wellness benefits by having a pet around. Petting a dog that you have a relationship with versus trying to be nice to a dog you're afraid is going to bite your hand off. Animals are a source of unconditional love. They did this, well, I'm going to share something on Tuesday about this. You'll be interested in a piece of research I want to share. I don't have time now. Just know that if you don't have a person around to experience touch with, a pet makes a very good substitute in many ways. We can all have access to that. So if you're going to talk about enhancing your environment, let's bring this down. Get rid of toxins. Let the sun shine in. In fact, if you want to go to a source that has, I've been told there's a website that you can find. I don't know if this is good or bad or what they have, but eartheasy.com, never been there. Eartheasy.com might have some products that have fewer toxins in them. I don't know. Eartheasy.com. Get rid of toxins. Let sunshine in. Get 20 minutes of fresh air and sunlight a day. Relative humidity, keep it to 40 to 60%. Anything less or anything more triggers bacteria and other diseases start growing in your environment. So you want to monitor this. That's optimum. I'd rather have it a little bit less than more. I mean, having less is not going to be so damaging as having more. So don't be as concerned if you have less than 40% humidity. Be concerned if you have more than 60. That's not healthy. Add plants, flowers, remove unnecessary clutter, add objects of warmth, something that puts a smile on your face, pictures of family, kids, grandkids, I don't know. Candles, aromatherapy. We didn't talk about it today, but there is something to it. Eucalyptus and peppermint actually invigorate your thinking, your mind. We would have written these off as, nothing just a few years ago, but science is proving there is an effect from these fragrances. And doesn't that make sense? God created flowers. Could he have created flowers and trees and blossoms so they didn't give off any fragrance? He could have. But he created them so they did give off a fragrance. So it makes sense that the fragrance would have an impact on us physiologically, doesn't it? So we shouldn't write these off as old wives' tales. In the video this afternoon that Chris is going to show, there'll be a part on there about aromatherapy. Get a pet. We've talked about that. The point is, who's in charge of your environment? Me or you? You're in charge of your environment. So choose to create an environment that helps you to enjoy your life and produces optimal health. And as you do that, you'll be living life to the fullest. Let me go over the answers with you really quick, and then we're done. In your environment, there's actually only 3 blanks. In your environment outline. Yeah, I had to skip over a few things. Just the greener a child's play area, the less they have problems with attention deficit symptoms. That's the very top bullet. But okay, natural environments reduce blood pressure. Natural environments reduce blood pressure and lower pulse. Natural environments reduce blood pressure and lower pulse. If you don't get these, see me when we're done. I'll be here for a few minutes. Go down to the next blank. Scents affects mood and behavior. Scents, S-C-E-N-T-S, or you can put fragrances. Scents and fragrances affect mood and behavior. Actually, weightlifters, Olympic weightlifters will do the smelling salts thing before they do a lift because smelling salts agitates their system and floods it with some adrenaline and makes them stronger. The last line. Clutter is visual pollution. Clutter is visual pollution. Clutter is visual pollution. All right. Thank you for being here today and for going through that at light speed. Tomorrow we're going to cover activity and nutrition. You want me to close it, or Chris? Okay, I'll close it. All right. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for being our Father and our God, and for this wonderful body that you created, not just for us to enjoy now, but for us to enjoy with you forever throughout eternity. Lord, help us to enjoy life starting now, and to always enjoy it in the presence of our best friend, which is you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Yes, sir.